As we tell you guys, a lot of our podcast content and our topics are motivated by communication we have directly with you. And a lot of you communicate directly with Julie and I through Instagram. You direct message us. And if you ever want to message us ideas for shows or questions, that's really a great place to do it. So I received a message the other day, and this is from somebody who is in their 50s, late 50s if I remember correctly, and they were feeling a little bit like the world has gotten by them and their opportunity really to do anything exceptional with their lives has come and gone. And it was kind of depressing, but at the same time it was kind of interesting from my perspective because it gave me an opportunity to really, frankly, be motivated to create the outline for this podcast. Julie and I did it together, obviously, but also to directly help that person. So what I did is I created this outline and I called them up and I gave them like a little mini, essentially a little mini coaching call using some of these facts and figures, and it made an enormous difference. And ever since then, I've been getting little updates about the things that they've been doing. So here's the reality. It's never too late to achieve success in real estate or in life in general. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing stories with you that I know should motivate you, I know will definitely educate you and hopefully get you into action. Because here's the reality of it. The reality of it is that most of us won't achieve our greatest levels of success until we're in our 50s and 60s. And despite what you might be hearing from social media and from all these influencers who are making you believe that, once you hit 25, you're past your prime,
Right.
Despite all that, I think you'll be shocked, amazed, and maybe in some strange ways comforted to know that the prime time of your life to become a multimillionaire and achieve your greatest successes are at the same age that a lot of people, unfortunately, start to give up. So keep those thoughts in mind. And again, if you have any other show ideas or questions or really anything, make sure you just message us directly through Instagram, and it's at Tim and Julie Harris.
All right, so today we're going to talk about inspiring stories, as Tim said, action plans, mindset shifts for every stage of your career. And I love hearing from our listeners and getting your ideas, so I love that this started out that way. So let's begin with a quote from George Eliot, who said, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." I think he's saying, get started now and it's going to be faster. So remember, guys, the average age of a residential real estate agent in the U.S. is 55 years old.
I think actually now it's 56.
I think you're,
Yeah,
new year,
You're right.
add another one on.
56-year-old female, actually.
I think you're right.
Yep.
Whether you're starting fresh in real estate, scaling your business, or navigating in a challenging market, one thing is clear. Success doesn't have an expiration date. Instead, it's tied to action, mindset, and persistence.
Julie, I want to interject here. A lot of the reasons a lot of people don't feel, I'd say, professionally successful is because during their, before you're 55, you're spending a lot of time doing other things for other people.
That's very true.
A lot of people are spending a lot of time sorting themselves out, essentially working to earn a reputation that's going to create a great business for them. But a lot of times they're raising kids and they're doing all those other types of things. Mm-hmm. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And I think where a lot of people get confused is the belief that you can have balance. Balance is not just a myth, it's an insidious myth. In other words, the belief that you can have balance in your life is something that destroys a lot of people's motivation because they'll say, well, I don't have balance. I have to figure out a way to equally balance, or somehow close to equally balance, all the things, the family, the physical, the mental, the spiritual, the financial, all the things. And if I don't feel like I'm balancing all of those things perfectly, well, then guess what? I'm just going to be, somehow I'm a failure. And the exact opposite is true. I have never personally met or read about or seen anybody who's achieved anything great, be it in their family or spiritually or financially, that has perfect balance in their lives. If you see somebody that's in really, really good shape, they're giving up time that they would have otherwise been spending doing other things. And so this is the reason, I think, a lot of reasons why, in a very practical, kind of makes sense way, that most people don't achieve their greatest successes until they're at the midpoint, I think, because of the fact they had a lot of other things that were going on in their lives that, merited their attention and merited their money, frankly.
Yeah, for sure.
And now they're at the point where a lot of the ego stuff that maybe, like the way you think when you're in your 50s is not the same the way you thought even when you're in your mid-40s or your early 40s or your mid-30s. There's something that changes in the human brain. And I see this happening in you, Julie, and I know I felt it as well. But as you and I don't know if you thought about this, ready for this?
Uh-oh.
We've been married for 34 years this year.
Yeah.
So we've known each other forever. But I remember, you and I were going through a lot of stresses. Like we're in our 30s and our 40s, there was all about still trying to prove yourself. And,
Sure.
And if you guys look at human behavior, a lot of people buy these big expensive houses and do all these other types of things that are supposed to show their success when they're in that 30s to 40s age range. There's something inside of all of us that essentially wants to prove to the world, through our, I think, material possessions and our achievements that we merit being special, we merit being respected, or I don't even know what. Like I said, I've never put a lot of thought into this.
Well, it's a craving for recognition on some level.
That's really the essence of it.
Even if it's a recognition of yourself by yourself, that you're doing the right thing, you're getting a confirmation that your hard work is paying off. I think a lot of that is just natural human nature, but I'm glad that you brought up the idea of balance, because how many coaching calls have we had, and even friends and in our own lives, where the pursuit of this mythical balance actually throws you further off balance and causes the stress in that belief. So I think part of this is coming to the realization that there is no such thing as a perfect balance. And as you go through different stages in your life, you're imbalanced in different ways.
Okay, so you just teed me up and got me back on track like you always do, so thank you. So the moral of the story is that you are going to be putting different focus on different things at different points in your life.
Yes.
And so in my opinion, having worked on this outline for you guys for like probably, 5 hours with Julie and I, the reality of it is that you're naturally going to be able to be more focused on finances, naturally be more focused on accumulation of wealth when you're not distracted by all the other things. And so there's, some people call it a season, right? But there's a certain time in your life when you're, if you think about little kids, when they go from, learning how to just do the very basic things, and they get smarter and they get more sophisticated, and then in their 20s they start becoming independent adults, hopefully, and then they form families in their 30s and the whole thing, or maybe they form families in their 20s. There's certain times in your life which you're supposed to be doing things. So if you're feeling like the ball has gotten by you, just because, like, say you're in your late 40s and maybe you're in your early 60s, and you feel like, well, I don't have any wealth accumulation, I still haven't ever accomplished any sort of sense of financial security, all these types of things. If you start believing that you're never going to do it because you're being brainwashed by popular culture, leading you to believe that you're too old, you are exactly the right age, because that's exactly where most people actually do it. You just have to drill down on the facts and give yourself a little bit of a break and realize that now is your time to actually accumulate wealth.
Yes, and if that wasn't enough, we're bringing you some stories, some inspiring stories of later success, proof to you that it's never too late. So that's not just coming from me and Tim. Here are some great examples, and we're going to then tell you, some things to implement, what to do about it. So number one, Anthony Hopkins, a breakthrough at age 54. His turning point was when he was cast as Hannibal Lecter at age 54, earning him an Academy Award for Best Actor. Some of them don't know. I don't know if anybody does know who Hannibal Lecter is, but Silence of the Lambs for our 20-somethings that maybe don't know that. Okay.
You want to tell a good? You want to tell a good story?
Go ahead.
All right. So you and I are over in Tuscany in Italy.
Oh, right. This is hilarious.
Last summer, and we went on a tour. You'll remember all the fancy
Borgo
Italian.
San Felice.
Exactly. I'll never remember that.
San Felice, maybe.
And so we're standing in this Borgo. Say it again.
Borgo San Felice, which is a historic town, a medieval town that a hotel bought and turned into a beautiful, unbelievable resort. It's very castle-like.
So we stayed there for about a week, and we were going on a tour of their vineyard, and went on a tour where they make the wine, whatever you call the wine-making place, Anyway, so they have these winery. Thank you. So they have these big barrels, and obviously it's just exactly like you think. Everything's very dark and musty, and very
chilly, underground,
chilly, the whole thing. So we're going on this tour, and towards the end of the tour, the tour guide, very proper Italian lady, kind of, there's one, I think there's just you and me and another couple, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And anyway, she stops and says, okay, basically this is the end of the tour. Now we're going to give you guys some, samples, and you can, that sort of thing.
Time to order the wine.
And then she's told us the funny story about the fact that one of the movies about came after Silence of the Lambs, where Hannibal Lecter, where Anthony Hopkins was eating the guy's brain. Do you guys remember that?
Sipping Chianti.
Remember that? Sipping Chianti, eating the brain, sautéing the brain at dinner.
Yeah.
It was Ray Liotta, I think.
Yep.
So anyway, it turns out the Chianti was actually the Chianti from that very vineyard where we were. And she tells us the story that they didn't even know that they were using their Chianti in the movie. And they were absolutely mortified when, essentially everyone started ordering the wine because they saw it in the movie, and they realized it was the best thing ever.
Yep.
But I just thought that was a funny story to share with all you guys.
So we've actually been there. That's our tie-in.
Exactly.
Still.
And no, we did not have brains.
No, they don't serve brains with it. No.
As
unfortunately.
far as we
know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have read the Italian on the menu. Okay. So obviously the impact, the story that proves that one role, one opportunity can redefine your life. I didn't, I guess I never thought before that movie that, I guess I assumed that he had been in things, but that was his breakout role, and he was 54 at the time.
He was a stage actor.
He was a stage actor and, obviously a great one. So the takeaway, the right listing for you guys, the right client, the right market moment could change everything. So be ready for that. Be open to that. I often tell coaching clients, I know we've talked about this on the podcast before, our first big listing when we moved to New Albany Country Club, that was a huge springboard for the rest of our career. We've been licensed, but that was the one thing for that market.
So keeping with this quasi-Italian theme, Enzo Ferrari. Now I thought this was,
of course.
Hopefully you guys are all becoming Formula One fans, but so Enzo Ferrari, very interesting. He did not actually start Ferrari as we know it today until he was 49, and because he had been working for Alfa Romeo and some other companies. But I'm just sharing that with you because everyone thinks, Ferrari must have been around since forever. Well, the guy was at 49 and he lived until he was in his 90s. But he had almost 50 years of building this amazing company that now has a market value over $83 billion. And it didn't start until he was 49. Why did it take him that long? Because he didn't have the money to start his own manufacturing company, because he was honing his skill and his craft working for other companies, and because he probably just emotionally and mentally wasn't ready. And a lot of you guys are in the exact same situations. You were not ready, or you were not at a point in your life where you're emotionally, mentally, and probably financially ready to actually build your own financial, I think, breakthrough moment. And that's what hopefully you're feeling motivated by today. The next point, Julie, is one that everyone talks about. I love this story, though.
It is, and that's Colonel Sanders, a recipe for global success at 62. His leap began when he started franchising his famous fried chicken recipe at 62 after a series of career failures. The impact now, of course, we all know KFC, that operates over 24,000 locations worldwide and generates $26 billion annually. That is a lot of chicken, isn't it? So remember that persistence outshines setbacks every time. Your breakthrough might be just one bold step away. So he kept on working it until he got the right recipe, quite literally in his case.
Now, here's what it's interesting about what Colonel Sanders did, KFC did, is that they built a franchise. So he had a background in business. He learned how to basically start a Kentucky Fried Chicken. He learned the business modeling in all the years prior to 62. So it wasn't that he took too long to start it. It's just that he needed the background in order to know what to do so that it would become successful. Where to get that background? From experience. And you can get that exact same experience and that exact same background necessary for you really to have your breakthrough by joining Premier Coaching. And you can join Premier Coaching right now for free. Just go to premiercoaching.com or scroll down below and click the link to join. Now, Premier Coaching is our A to Z complete real estate system. It includes specific lead generation plans, your presentations, your real estate systems, every single thing you need to build your real estate business and become essentially your own breakout success. So when we're rattling off this, list of the people that basically, hit it out of the park at 50s and 60s, your name will be on this list as well. And that I have to say, one of the big announcements we have with Premier Coaching is that we're going to be including what's going to be called Ethical Real Estate Professional. Now, Ethical Real Estate Professional, I'll explain this more because we're going to have a big launch event hopefully in a couple weeks. And it's going to be part of Premier Coaching. So when you join Premier Coaching, you're also going to get a very prestigious designation called Ethical Real Estate Professional. If you want to see what Ethical Real Estate Professional is all about, you can just actually go to Google and just put in Ethical Real Estate or Ethical Real Estate Professional, and the website comes up first. But the moral of the story is when you go on a listing presentation and you go on a buyer presentation, or you're just out in the community, all agents are basically seen the same. They have the same marketing, same websites where they market things. Everything looks and feels the same to consumers. Now, what you're going to have, because you're a Premier Coaching client, because you're going to have included with Premier is going to be the Ethical Real Estate Professional designation. You're going to have this designation that's going to set you apart. So you can check it out, but we're not taking any new members of Ethical Real Estate Professional until we have this event for the new Premier Coaching. So Premier Coaching is getting a revamp. It's going to include Ethical Real Estate Professional. A lot of you have been in Premier Coaching in the past. You definitely want to get back into it because Ethical Real Estate Professional really is going to be the ultimate differentiator, the ultimate way for you to have an unfair advantage in the marketplace. The links are down below to click on over to Premier Coaching. It's going to be automatically upgraded to include Ethical Real Estate Professional, and we do that hopefully in a couple weeks. Or you can just obviously go to premiercoaching.com. All right, Julie, next point.
Next point is Christian Dior. His pivot was when he founded his iconic fashion house at the age of 41. After years of working in the background, you guys can see a theme here is that these breakthroughs didn't happen until they had the foundation. That's why Tim was just reminding you about Premier Coaching. The impact for Christian Dior was, of course, he became one of the most recognizable luxury brands globally in women's fashion. I think we watched a Netflix movie about Dior, didn't we?
We did. It was kind of boring, yeah. But I have to say, so one of the recurring themes when I was researching these, and obviously, guys, I tried to pick some people as examples that would be more fun to talk about, but there's so many examples, especially in business. But one of the themes are all these people, for the most part, were essentially replicating or copying existing business models, and they were just evolving them and taking them to the next level. They weren't actually trying to waste time trying to, create some new thing. They were just improving the old thing, or they were just doing the old thing at a higher level. Mm-hmm. So that's an important lesson. If you really want to be rich, that's where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. Don't waste time trying to create something new. Just copy. And that's one of the greatest advantages that you have right now because of the internet, frankly, and because there's so many great examples to copy. I mean, if you guys wanted to start your own fashion design company today, wouldn't it just make sense you basically read every biography you could on Christian Dior and copy what he did? Doesn't it make sense if you're going to want to start any kind of business, the first thing you're going to do is study the people that have gone before you and that have become very successful doing it? That's why so many of you guys are joining Premier Coaching. So do not get into real estate or any business and think that the smart move is just to use this as your creative outlet to show the world that you have all these little different ideas and you're going to create your own logo and your brand and all your identity and all these things. Just say, my job is to be of service to other people. My job is to obviously sell a lot of houses, make a lot of profit. And then with that profit, reinvest that profit into things that are going to make me passive income. That's when you start becoming financially free. We talk about this in our best-selling book, Harris Rules. We talk about this, essentially I think what I just described to you guys is a very simple and elegant, easy to understand business plan. That's really what real estate's all about. Your real estate business has no value. Your real estate brand has no value other than to produce profit, other than to help you create transactions. And hopefully from those transactions, they're profitable enough that you have enough money left over that you reinvest and you can buy S&P 500, buy multifamilies, buy single families, buy things that are actually going to work for you. And remember, rich is where your money works for you. You no longer have to work for your money. So keep these things in mind. If you're just getting to the point where you've edged up on 50 and 60 and you're realizing, oh my gosh, I don't have enough money to never retire. Well, guess what? You do. You have enough time. You have enough life experience. For the most part, when you're in that age group, one of the best things about it is you're no longer ruled by your ego. You're now making clearer decisions. You can look back and maybe, if you had asked yourself when you were 20 or 30, if you have a choice between being rich and being famous, and I've asked this on stage before, and it's always interesting, younger people will always say, for the most part, if you have to choose between the two, being rich or being famous, you cannot choose both. The younger you are, the more likely you're going to be wanting to be famous. Remember, you can't choose two. Being famous, in my example for this thought exercise, does not mean you're going to be rich. So don't just say, well, I'm famous, now I'm rich. That is not hardly ever the way it works. There are a lot of famous people that have no money. So if you have to choose between famous and being rich, which are you going to choose? When you're younger, it's famous. When you're older, and older is usually in the mid-40s, then you're starting to realize, older is just for the sake of this example, not older as in mid-40s is older. I'm just saying certainly older than 20, right? But when you reach a certain age, let's say, then all of a sudden you're wanting to choose to be rich. Why? Because you value different things. You're no longer looking for the recognition from other people. You don't care so much about what other people think. And the older you get, the less you even give a rat's ass about recognition. The less you care about what other people think. The more you want your time freedom. The more you want actually, what happens is you start to focus on other things and you start to focus on essentially, that your time is more precious and you're less likely to waste it buying branding ads or spending money on things just to try to convince strangers that you're successful. You're going to want to buy those multifamilies. That's the reason that it takes a lot of people, most people, until they're in their 50s and 60s until they achieve their highest levels of success. It's an accumulation effect of wealth building, emotions building, mental aptitude. All these things have to get to the point where you're ready to receive the success.
Exactly, and not to mention skills build up over time, right?
Yep.
So this list would be incomplete if we didn't mention Henry Ford. And his turning point was when he launched the Ford Model T at the age of 40, revolutionizing transportation worldwide. So by making cars affordable for middle-class families, Ford changed how the world moves and works. great example, and there's tons of biographies
Now,
about him.
I'm going to talk real quick about Henry Ford.
Sure.
So here's what's interesting about Ford is that, yes, he didn't create the assembly line. People say that he did. There were other assembly lines that were around, but he scaled it up, basically. He mass produced cars. He was able to, obviously create an assembly line that people to this day assume that he created that whole building process. All right, so that isn't really the greatest thing he ever created. The greatest thing that Ford ever created was financing. And I know this is not something you guys will ever hear from anybody else, but this is really what he did. So he was making cars, well, his workers were making cars for Ford, and the workers couldn't afford the cars. And Henry then realized he had a lot of workers, that if he had a lot of workers that wanted his cars, that means that could be a lot of car sales. So they didn't have the money. So he started creating financing schemes to help the folks that worked for him to be able to buy the cars. And that then launched the huge industry of automotive finance. Now, what's really fascinating is automotive financing is actually more profitable for some manufacturers than actually selling cars. They make more money off the loans. I don't think that'll surprise most of you, but they make more money off the loans, and the margins on cars have grown so small that certainly car dealers will oftentimes make more money from loans. Manufacturers, that's the reason that you see these big manufacturers. I mean, we talked about Ferrari. Ferrari has its own financing, and their rates are much higher than normal car rates. And I read when I was researching all this for you guys, 80% of all new Ferraris are financed, and the interest rate is typically 3 points higher than a normal car rate. You don't think Ferrari's making serious bank off finance? Of course they are. So I think perhaps Henry Ford is best known for creating the assembly line, but really what he did, what created the most, money essentially, was automotive finance.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So it's probably the combination of being able to make more cars, driving the price down, plus the financing, made it, for the common man type of thing. So I think he is a great example. All right, so Julia Child, cooking up legacy at age 50, the culinary late bloomer. She published her first cookbook, Mastering the Art of French Cooking, at age 50. And that book sold over 1.5 million copies, transforming how Americans approach or even know about French cuisine. I have it in our cookbooks.
Well, and that's back when you made real money from books, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was her passion becoming her legacy. But of course, in order to have that book, she had to learn how to do the recipes in the first place.
But think of Julia Childs. Not everyone knows who she is, right? Sure. I mean, she's a character. You guys should see her on YouTube. Mm-hmm. She's not alive anymore. But the moral of the story is that when you were to hear the word Julia Childs, certainly when Julie and I are growing up, most of you listening too, you instantly saw this sort of bombastic, very expressive woman, kind of filling the screen because of her personality, but also, let's just be honest, her size. But she was so freaking entertaining and amazing to watch. To think that you wouldn't have known her or recognized her, or she wasn't really famous or successful prior to 50, it doesn't even make sense, right? Yeah. Because you've only seen her since she was 50 and older. You don't realize that she already lived half of her life working to the point where she would have launched that book and been successful. You guys get it? So even if your first half of your life hasn't been something that you're wanting to be maybe you're just not very frankly satisfied with what you've accomplished in your life. Maybe you wanted to travel all these different places, but you've never done it. You've wanted to have these experiences. You wanted to be able to give money to this certain charity or to donate, all the things, right? And you're slowly, this is going back to the message I got from Instagram, and you're slowly, and maybe not so slowly, giving up on your dreaming, giving up on your thinking big, giving up on what you'd always wanted to accomplish in your life. But now you look at these examples we're giving you, and the next one's really fun too. And you got to wake up to the reality that maybe what you've been doing is getting ready for this year to be the actual start of all the amazing dreams that you set for yourself when you were younger.
Exactly. If these guys can do it, so can you. So our next example is Samuel L. Jackson, stardom at 46. His breakthrough role was when he gained fame in Pulp Fiction. He was 46, and prior to that, he'd had a lot of personal struggles. But now his films have collectively grossed over $27 billion worldwide. So the takeaway, of course, is that your greatest opportunity does often come after your biggest challenge. There's so many examples of that. We're just pulling out a few for you guys today.
Do you remember that movie Pulp Fiction? I know it wasn't your favorite, but do you remember with him and John Travolta?
Yes, they were great in it.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's obviously a breakout role, so pretty interesting. But what do all of these stories teach us? Well, 3 bullet points here, guys. Age is not a barrier. It's often an advantage. With age comes experience. That's our next point. Experience brings wisdom, perspective, and resilience. And your next breakthrough might come from one bold action. We gave you lots of examples there. So let's translate those lessons we're going to do through number 2 today here.
That's fine.
Into mindset shifts. What do you do knowing all these stories? Actionable steps so you can apply these to your real estate career. So the real estate mindset shift. Age is an asset, not a barrier. We've got 5 little mini things for you, mindset truths for you to digest. Number 1, experience is actually your edge. Years of market cycles, client interactions, and problem solving give you wisdom that younger agents don't have. Lots of ways we could go with that if you wanted to talk about that.
Well, I mean, but look at the obvious one. So younger agents, when they are, let's say you're in your 20s, you just got your real estate license, and you don't have, frankly, a big center of influence and past client list. You don't necessarily, your mind is still so focused on what do they think of me. In other words, if I ask you to make a phone call to, say, one of your centers of influence and past clients, or somebody you just know, and the intent is to have obviously a friendly conversation, but with the intent of essentially talking about real estate, maybe generating a lead. Most of you will immediately have your heads full of, oh my gosh, what are they going to think of me? They're going to think I'm desperate. They're going to think I'm this. They're going to think I'm that. They're going to think, oh, I'm just calling them because I'm trying to use them. So your head fills with all of these thoughts. Those thoughts, as you get older, you don't have those thoughts. They're still there, but they're very, very weak in your mind, because you realize that you have a lot more that you can actually offer. And so when Julie and I say your highest and truest purpose on this planet is to be of service to other people, when you're younger, that doesn't resonate. I know, but we're going to say it anyway, because eventually it will as you grow older. But when you are older, you do realize that's true, don't you? Your highest and truest purpose on this planet is to be of service to other people. And you then connect the dots. If that means calling somebody and making yourself temporarily uncomfortable because you're calling them to be of service to help them buy or sell real estate, or whatever their real estate need is, then all of a sudden in your mind, spiritually almost, you've shifted away from your ego, which is always focused on what will they think of me, to I'm here to be of service to other people. That is very hard to manifest when you're old, or when you're younger, frankly, but it becomes natural to think that way the older you get.
That's very well said. I think that's absolutely true and demonstrated by many of our coaching clients. You were talking about making calls. Well, that brings us to number 2. Your network is gold. Decades of relationships are your untapped gold mine of referrals and repeat clients. I'm thinking of somebody like one of my coaching clients, Tammy Irby in Northern Virginia. She's really tapping into this. She's doing a free market analysis campaign. She's reaching out to 100% of her, and she does have decades of, I think she's been in real estate more than 30 years, decades of relationships. And she's not just doing it once a year when she thinks of it, or during, when taxes are due. She does this monthly through her newsletter and then a CMA campaign. So remember, the longer you've been in business, the more network you've got, the more past clients and even center of influence. That is untapped gold. Well, so make sure that you get into that.
Let's give them some facts. So
Sure.
The average agent in the United States is a 56-year-old woman. And after she's been in the business for 5 years, she gets something like 80% of all of her business from centers of influence and past clients.
Yep.
Now, I want you to break down what I just said. That's not to say that she's been selling a ton of houses every year, but what that does tell you is that she's able to comfortably have conversations with her centers of influence, I didn't say past clients, where she's comfortably willing and able to talk about the fact that she's in real estate, and after 5 years that they know she's in real estate. That's the reason it does become easier the longer you stay in real estate, as long as you're not, being a secret agent, as long as you're actually following a plan and you're having, your mindset is geared towards, I am here to help other people. That is my highest, truest purpose on this planet. And I've chosen the career of real estate. So my mission in life, professionally speaking, is to be of service to other people, helping them buy or sell real estate. And when you connect all those dots, you'd be shocked how easy it is to generate leads. Leads are all around you. You've chosen the right business. Everywhere you go, everyone you see is wanting to buy, sell real estate. Every single human either want to lease, buy, sell, buy multiple properties. You will never come across a human that does not want to be in real estate. That is not true with everything else. I don't want a boat, right?
No.
I don't want another set of, I don't want Ginsu knives. I don't, all these things, right? Other people who are selling those things, they have to look for somebody that wants to buy them. You don't. Everybody wants what you have for sale.
It just makes sense when you put it that way. All right, number 3, it's never too late to learn. This is sometimes what we hear from you guys. Well, technology has passed me by. But tools like CRMs, AI-driven marketing, video content, that can all be learned at any age. I think it's actually gotten easier to learn all of that stuff through YouTube videos, through Premier Coaching is a great example of
Well,
that.
the hard part is being able to essentially separate the wheat from the chaff.
Yes.
Because there's so much absolute crap out there. And that's the reason that people love Premier Coaching, is so they can go and then talk with other people who are maybe have experimented with some of these sketchy things out there on the marketing and branding side of the business. And they will report that, not so great, didn't
That's
work.
right.
Julie and I have been coaching and training business for more than 2 decades at this point. And the list of great ideas, oh my gosh, everyone's doing this, shiny object ideas, has come and gone. There's so many of these things. And there's more, and it used to be, you would see one of these whiz-bang ideas and it might last 5 or 10 years and then it would, essentially go away. Now they're coming and going in less than usually 2 years, sometimes less than 12 months. Don't waste your time and your energy on some of these whiz-bang marketing branding things. Do what you already intuitively know is necessary for you to be successful. And if you don't have the skills or don't know what to say or how to say it, join Premier Coaching. What are you waiting for?
Very well said. All right, number 4, small daily actions win. This is something I've been talking with coaching clients a lot about this week. Consistent effort compounds into exponential results. When you consider just speaking with 5 people per day, 4 or 5 days per week, after just 30 days, you're going to have some results. So it's the small daily actions. It's not the panic actions when you run out of listings, when you have a deal die, when you have stress in your business. Of course, all of you react to that. That's normal human nature. That's when the typical freakout happens. It's being able to do the small daily actions, the habits that lead to your transactions. Consistent effort does compound into exponential results. We're doing a future podcast on that, about the accumulation effect. So stay tuned for more on that point.
So when you join Premier Coaching, in the first level, which you have access to, there's something called the Real Estate Treasure Map. That is your fill-in-the-blank business and life plan. Download that puppy and then complete it. Do it urgently. Do it with your loved one or loved ones, and you will find that now that you have a plan called the Real Estate Treasure Map, you are now feeling a sense of security and direction that maybe you've never felt before. And here's Julie's last point, was a really great place to remind all of you. A wonderful day only comes down to achieving 3 to 5 things at a high level. And that's going to be, from a personal side, showing, saying I love you to the people that you love, showing essentially that you are appreciative of the gratitude, right? Showing gratitude in an overt way every day. You're going to want to have some kind of physical workout. You're going to want to take supplements, whatever your plan calls for. Then on the business side of things, it's going to be making a certain number of proactive lead generation contacts per day. It's going to be doing lead follow-up. It's going to be doing things that put you in a direct communication with decision-making adults about buying or selling real estate. At the end of the day, you've done the things. How do you feel? Even if you didn't generate any leads or sell a house, you took the next natural step in building the momentum that will lead to future transactions. Versus if you spend a lot of money on marketing and branding, hoping and praying that that new Facebook ad is going to generate a lead. Oh, you're putting them in your funnel. Your funnel's not working. Oh my gosh, what do I need to change there? What do I need to change there? You better write your emails so you can drip on them longer. You guys get the futility of all that? There's too many threat vectors, too many points of breakage. If you're wanting to help people and you're wanting to make money and you don't want to screw around anymore with the hypothetical or the sketch, as kids are calling it nowadays, you got to do what you already naturally know is the right thing to do in your business and personal life, which is start being the best version of yourself as a real estate practitioner, being a proactive lead generator, which means picking up the phone, which means having conversations with folks, which means actually putting yourself out there, and you're putting yourself out there to help other people. Stop hiding behind the keyboard or waiting for leads and opportunities to come to you. You're in your 50s and your 60s. You got to go after it. If it was going to come to you, it would have already. You have to go after it. That's something that hope you already knew is true. You know what I just said is true. I know some of you regret not having done it when you were younger. Well, unregret it and catch up now.
Yes, because if you don't, point number 5 settles in: adapt or get left behind. The market changes and the most successful agents evolve with it. You do have to take action. Remember the saying, inaction is an action. You've got to take action every day, one step at a time. You can have affirmations. I'm a doer, I do things, now I get things done. You can say, my experience is my strength, especially if you're older. I'm perfectly positioned to succeed in today's market. I love coaching older, more experienced agents because they do have that background. They've built their skills up, their confidence is high, and they actually get faster results when they do the proactive
They're
lead
easier to
generation.
coach.
They're
That's
easier
who-
to coach.
They are easier
because
to
they don't
coach.
have all that ego junk in the way,
Well-
and they're not all hung up about, like, they know that they can be of service because they have been of service.
Well, honestly, Julie, if we just want to take our gloves off, it's because
Sure.
they're tired of their own bullshit. That's
yes,
why.
they've gotten to the point where, you know, the clock is ticking and they're like, I've had it. I don't have time to really think about getting ready to get started anymore. It's time to take action. And I love how they do tend to get results faster, assuming that they do the work that it takes to get there.
Now, if you want to be tired of your own bullshit and you're in your 20s, go you.
That's fine too.
Yeah, it's good
So why,
too.
I don't know why you'd wait.
Frankly, that's what Julie and I did.
Yeah.
We basically just followed in the footsteps of other people. That's maybe has something to do with the reason in our early 20s we sold over 100 houses, right? I mean, that's the reason that we sold, 100 to 200 homes starting in our early 20s for almost a decade. The reason that we've essentially had the #1 podcast, a best-selling book, all these things. It's because what we did is we studied who had come before us. We looked for the elements that we like. I mean, Julie and I listen to other podcasts for getting ideas, and essentially, frankly, so we don't get left behind. And you guys got to do the same thing.
You gotta stay frosty, as you would say.
Right, stay frosty. So that the word complacency is kind of a made-up fake word. Complacency by definition means you're just not doing anything, you're not taking any action. But if you think about this, it's a bit of a mind bender because the word complacency is a word, but you cannot be complacent. Otherwise, not only do you get left behind financially, but you're going to get left behind. Your friends are going to leave you behind. Your family's going to leave you behind. Your dog's going to forget your name. All these things. So you are never going to be at a point in your life where you can be complacent or you can kick your feet up. And if you think being wealthy or being rich where your money's working for you and you no longer have to work for your money, rich and then you become wealthy, right? If you think that means, well, no more worries, that's not true. There are always going to be things that you're going to worry about. Our job is to make it so that money is no longer one of them for you, right? That's what Julie and I are trying to do.
That's what we do.
We're trying to make it so that there are always going to be shit to worry about. We're trying to make it so for you, money is no longer one of them. Hopefully that resonates with all of you. So we're going to pick up where we left behind tomorrow on part 2 of today's podcast. In the meantime, your homework, join Premier Coaching. The link is down below, or just go to premiercoaching.com. Have a fantastic day.